staff that I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of an overview of some of our, city compensation practices later. Just to give you sort of a city perspective on what we normally do for staff, and then, then use that as you will for kind of informing your decisions about council salaries as well.
Great.
So nice to meet everybody. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. What I was able to do while you were saying hello there is ensure that our recording is occurring for this meeting. We are doing our best unless there's a technical difficulty. Minutes are your formal requirement for your meetings, but because this is a decision-making body, we wanted to ensure that we had additional open transparency for folks. So what we'll do is at the end, I will process the video and then I'll ship it over to our IT folks or communications people, and they'll put it on our YouTube channel, and then we'll live in a repository. And then on your landing page of your salary commission, you'll have the agenda. And then once the minutes are adopted, you'll have a link to that. And then once your video has been processed, you'll have a third link. So it'll be a little bit easier. Say if there was a meeting that you couldn't attend and you wanted to get caught up on sort of what happened in the room, that will be the best resource to watch. Go ahead and move this out of the way. All right, so we do have several items on our agenda, and we will move through them as best we can. From time management perspective, we'll be, if there's something we need to carry over to a future meeting, we can decide that as we move along.
Good.
So the first thing that you need to do is election of positions. And I look forward to this because the role of the chair is to help the meetings run, as smooth as possible, try to keep us on agenda. And I also will leverage the chair to facilitate the agendas, the draft agendas that are being produced. And in your packets, I think.
Does anybody want to be the chair?
I've done it before.
Done it before, and you've
Not to cut either way, John. I've done it on various boards. Council president.
We're all the newbies.
Yeah, call for nominations.
So
yeah, I think as you're thinking about interests, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna wanna know if there's interest in chair, and if there's only one, we can move through just by no objection. And then we could do the same thing for vice chair. So I did have a handout in your packet, and it just was about, ensuring that there's order, making sure that all the voices are heard. So if someone's been quiet, there's an opportunity to reach out and say, do you have anything additional to add? Facilitating the formal public comment or hearings. Of course, I can help you through that process as well. If a formal vote is needing, just ensuring that the process is handled. And again, I'll be in the room. Again, debate, keeping order. And assuring that there's a quorum, or also just declaring adjournment, and then helping with producing future agendas. And there'll probably be a strong role with prepping the report that you have, unless another member wants to raise their hand as you move through the process.
Does anybody not want to do it? Okay, so we're all open to doing it. So what happens?
Well, since John is very much the most, tenure person in the government and experienced, I nominate John for chair.
Okay. I second that
Second.
nomination.
Thank you.
Okay.
John, do you accept?
yes.
Okay,
All
great.
right. I didn't hear any objections, so we'll approve that by unanimous consent.
Vote John.
And now John will need support in being a backup. So who would like to serve in vice chair role?
What does the backup chair do?
If I'm not here for some reason.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a meeting.
I'd like to.
Your Honor.
The role, if nobody wants to take it up, I'll throw my hat to the vice chair, but.
Can you be at all the meetings?
Yeah, I think.
That's good. I nominate Victor for a second.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Great. Not hearing any other nominations. There being no objections, as I pause.
Mhm.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Oh, that's why he was checking out.
What is that that you're?
These are the chair pens. It just says city of, not just, it says the city of Issaquah. It has a gavel in the middle. John might slide it over for you to take a look if he feels.
Yeah, these are new.
Inclined.
Oh, okay. Just gavel and a stick. Oh, I bet that's supposed to be like a tabletop. I read it. It says City of Issaquah Chair.
And there's a gavel in the
Oh.
middle.
Instead of a real gavel.
Mhm.
Great. So I will note that in our minutes. I will now turn the portion of chairing over to Chair Traeger.
Okay, so when we used to do this on the Development Commission, the members have been there for like 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
And so the joke was, if you didn't show up when there was an election, you were the president.
Somebody might have already said that here tonight. You were late.
Yeah, okay, there you go. See, the things never change.
Thank you.
You weren't there to go know that.
Okay, so we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes? So moved.
Yeah.
Moved and
I
second.
second approve. Everything.
Although, any edits from anybody? All right, all those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no objection, we will,
Move on to public comment, and there's
Yeah.
no public present. Is there any online?
there are not.
CFO. Where's he?
You can walk across the street or you can come online.
Not yet.
Is it gonna be virtual
I'll
today?
ping them. We might
Yeah, he was
head in a
coming.
different direction.
On there, because he's talking.
And then the one thing I just wanted to note, I mentioned it in the past, that your minutes are gonna be action minutes, so they're abbreviated. So it's not gonna include debate, it's not gonna have
Okay.
the pain, if there's painful moments of dialogue or, trying to sledge through a moment, you will, it's really the outcome. So it's really focused on what are the next steps.
Okay.
However, if you've had debate and you need more information on something, most likely it'll be noted in here. Like what were the sticking points, or what do you, what do we need to go do more research on? So that's the information that we'll want to capture. And then you do have the ability, instead of, because you're a small enough group, that you could do unanimous consent for your minutes. But John's, it's good practice though, to approve your minutes with the I move to approve. Because you are going to be in situations where you have those formal votes. So
Okay.
just know you have two options with voting, and then other things we'll just hear for, is there consensus? And then when there isn't, then your chair will walk through the formal voting process.
So it's always in the next meeting that they get approved, or it's
Usually, yeah, they're ready. for the
Yeah,
next meeting.
Unless there was, something happened and there was a delay, but we'll make every attempt to get your minutes produced and in the packet.
I mean, it's the wonders of technology, because they don't have to do, it's not court recording anymore, which it used to be.
Right,
And so it would take a while before you get the copy.
those transcripts.
But we have the video. So if you want to relive the arguments, you can just always go on YouTube and watch the video. So you get all the detail you want out of that, but then, because the public wants to know, well, how did they get to that action? They can go look at the video.
yes.
All right, if we had public here, we would ask them if they were comfortable to tell us their name, their address, or at least their neighborhood or relationship to the city. We'd ask them to, limit their comments as best they can. We might want to put some people on a timer if you had a full room. And I want to reiterate that it's not a question and answer period. We might be inclined, just because of the format, to ask a clarifying question, but they're not at the table, but what they have to say is important and we want to consider it. And the chair can always follow up outside of the meeting, or I can, we feel that there's important information to get to them.
Tina, before we leave this, there's a name up there that says was invited to the meeting. Is that someone we should know about?
Regina,
Yeah.
she is in the executive office, and if I'm not available or Lauren's not available, then she'll be the staff person that will attend.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
I didn't
question.
know she was a member of the public trying to get in.
Good point. So we can move past our financial information, and you're here, so let's leverage that opportunity.
Okay, so, you guys have already met me, so I don't have to do that piece. But like I said, I work in the HR department, so I do, you know, a lot of, compensation surveys with other jurisdictions, you know, about our city positions, and not council really that frequently, but, other city positions. And so I want to give you an overview of kind of our compensation practices in the city for our staff, and then also some of our guiding documents that we use, our benefit package, just give you kind of a 30,000 foot level of what we have in the city. So that as you're making decisions for council, you know how that compares to kind of what city staff have as well. We'll start with just a reference to something that's in your packet, which is the compensation philosophy statement. That's a document that we created in 2020 when we did a citywide classification and compensation study. And the council approved that philosophy statement, you know, at that point in time for city staff. And it just kind of gives some principles that we look at, you know, how do we determine what our labor market is? How do we make compensation decisions? Where do we want to be in that labor market? It's very general, but it's our kind of backbone document. So I think it's helpful for you to be aware of that. And one other kind of backbone document that Tina provided is our equity framework. And that's a series of 13 questions. It's a little bit long, so, you know, it's meant to be sort of a discussion starter more than anything else, just kind of thinking about, you know, how are the decisions that you make at this table going to impact the makeup of our council in terms of, you know, who is able to serve and who might not be able to serve, because perhaps compensation is an issue or that kind of thing. So it's really just, we would sort of hope that you look at that as you go and continue to kind of think through, you know, how do the decisions that I make, you know, impact marginalized communities, that sort of thing. What sort of impact might there be? And, you know, I don't think anybody's going to ask you to create a formal report at any point in time, but it's really just if we can, you know, keep those things at the forefront of our mind. We're trying to do that sort of citywide in different areas. So documents for you, I'm sure you'll refer back to them as you do your work, but and we'll talk a little bit about benefit packages and then also some of the comparison cities we use. So yeah, Tina, if you don't mind advancing the slide. So a couple of just quick facts. Our HR team is quite small. We only have 6 staff members. And one of our responsibilities is citywide compensation. We have about 290 budgeted FTEs. 6 bargaining groups covered by various unions. And in terms of, you know, how frequently do we do this for city staff? How frequently are we looking at these things? Usually every 5 to 7 years, we do a citywide class and comp study. And that's like a full deep dive kind of study. But we also do, you know, maintenance of classifications every 2 to 3 years. And that means, you know, again, kind of a more limited look at salaries for different positions and how we compare. And then on an ad hoc basis, you know, as we have new positions, we'll be looking at salaries from our surrounding jurisdictions, If we have a request for classification review or something like that, we'll look at, salaries and just, we're always kind of trying to make sure that our salary is in line with our labor market.
How do the, ad hoc new positions get created?
Yeah, so that would normally be, in the budgeting process, you know, there might be a new position added to the budget. Most of the time, it's a new position that we already have a salary for, so it's like an engineer, and we're just adding another engineer. But every so often, we create a totally new position that we've never had before, and so we've got to say, okay, we need a job description, we need a title, we need a salary range, we need to kind of, you know, from the ground floor, build it up. So that doesn't happen every budget cycle necessarily, but you know, every time we budget, it's a possibility. Just, you know, in the past few years, we've added positions like sustainability coordinator or crime analyst or, you know, things like that that we never had before. And so we've got to, you know, make sure we set the salary at an appropriate space to be competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, and there, in the past, we had a lot of job descriptions and titles that didn't match what the people were doing. And so the person left, it got really hard to recruit because everybody's like, well, I don't know anything about chickens, you know, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we were doing those just to actually get alignment with what the job role turned into. And it'll actually sunset the old title.
And that's what the maintenance of specifications is.
Yeah.
It's more like rates. So
Okay.
like in the tech world, it just went crazy there for probably 5 years.
Mm.
We got way behind, and so then we had to fix that. And then lately, it's more about public safety, we got way behind, had to fix that. And so it just depends, different markets.
Yeah, just, you know, it's kind of the goal to be looking at everybody's salary citywide on a pretty frequent basis so that we never get too behind or too ahead. You know, if we're way ahead, then our salary is way too high. And that's, you know, maybe not a great use of public dollars. If we don't look at it and we're way behind, we're gonna have trouble recruiting and we're not gonna get people. So we just want to kind of do it frequently enough that we're staying in a reasonable space. And that's the maintenance and classifications piece. So taking a look at this list, this is kind of the comparison cities. You know, we've over the years done surveys in a bunch of different ways and with a large list of jurisdictions or a small list of jurisdictions, and we've kind of shaken it out into this sort of medium list that tends to hit a pretty good mix of jurisdictions that are a little bit on the high side, a little bit on the low side, our neighbors, some of the ones that are important from a labor perspective. And so I share this with you, just this is, you know, if I was gonna go set a salary for a new position tomorrow, these are the cities that I would be looking at, to see what do they have a match to the position, what's the salary? And using that as our kind of comparable market. And so, you know, when you're looking at city council salaries, I mean, obviously this commission will at some point want to look at some data, but we just want to at least kind of give you a sense of where we look for city positions. And we've tried to kind of tailor it down to a list that's not, it's enough cities that we're kind of getting a good data set, but we're also not getting so exhaustive that it's, you know, you can always add one more city or.
And the thing about this list here is it's kind of a trick question because population is not a correlation really. It's more about, because they're structured differently. So some cities might outsource everything and they have a fairly small footprint, even though they have like 3 times our population. And other cities do everything in-house, including stuff that we, like a lot of human services we contract out. They have everything in-house, so they have a whole bunch of stuff we don't even do. And then there's the organization of the council.
Hold on. I'll find out why sound is coming through here.
It's John just on the line.
I'm not connected.
But I'm hearing
You've
it
got
on
your
my-
speaker on there. You gotta
Yeah.
turn the speaker off.
There we go.
There you go. So I'm not hearing me once, but it echoes. It's really bad.
Well, if we didn't catch it the
Yeah.
first time.
So a lot of councils are strong mayor and some are council city manager, which is like Sammamish and Bellevue. So that has an impact on the amount of work council does and the roles they have. And we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Does that also apply for like just general full-time employees, so that kind of caveat, or you'd say?
Yeah.
The comparison is just more relevant when it comes
Yes.
to full-time.
There can be, departments can look completely different in the same size city, depending on how they're structured. So it's,
Right.
like I said, it's a trick question. You really have to dig in to make sure you're looking at apples to apples.
And, I mean, to be competitive, you know, we don't want to lose staff to another jurisdiction if they've got equivalent seats sitting somewhere else.
Right,
Mhm.
but I mean, I'm sure there are roles and jobs that depend on the size of the city as well, right, and then the population.
Mhm.
Yes.
I mean, one role at a level of Bellevue, 150,000 people, it looks much different than Issaquah, 40,000, right?
Right, and so from a city staff perspective, if we're matching a position with Bellevue, we're gonna look closely at the job descriptions and see,
Right.
you know, what's the difference?
Mhm.
Like one that I come across pretty often is like a crew lead or something, and our crew lead has one crew. The crew lead in Bellevue has 5 crews, you know, that's not the same job at that point. So, and, you know, similar kind of to what you'll do on the council side, I feel like, in what ways are these jobs similar and in what ways are these different? And so, you know, Bellevue may not be a great comparator for
Mhm.
council because it's too large, but, you know, again, this is something you'll kind of dive into to get a sense of.
And like maybe 20% of the positions, I'm guessing here, are comparable to the private sector.
Yeah.
And so you have to deal with that too. Like if you're trying to hire a network engineer, you know, well, everybody's got one, right? It's not just a city thing. As opposed to the weapons guy who controls the armory in the police station. Well, that's a very, very narrow, I think, specific role.
And does the city council then approves what the recommendation comes from the finance department?
Yeah, so usually what we'll do is we create a salary range for the position and then that's approved by ordinance by the city council. Yeah. We have a master salary ordinance that lays out all of our positions, all the salary ranges and titles so that council knows kind of exactly what we've
Right.
approved.
And that's where budget and actual gets a little squishy. Cause you're budgeting like the middle of the range, but if somebody comes in a lot less, you're saying, it cost less last year. Or maybe they went over market because that's all they could find out
Signing
there. and
bonuses
it was
at this point.
higher. So it's never exact as far as budget and actual, it's close. So, and then there's empty positions, or
And,
refill takes 2 or 3 months, right? So.
and the final offer to the candidate, for example,
Mhm.
comes from your department.
Yeah, so I mean, technically, we facilitate the whole process. Our city administrator really is the person with that authority, but, yeah, so we create the salary range, council approves that, and then if we have a candidate in front of us, we'll, kind of place them in the salary range based on their experience. And, how they compare to our internal staff that we currently have and that kind of thing, so. So yeah, and we're on a step system, so we've got, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you gotta hit one of those steps, so.
Yeah. So what I think we, staff, might do as we're planning, future meetings and what are comparison cities, likely gravitate to the ones that we use on a day-to-day basis. And then determine if I have any extra cities that have data. And then look to you to tell me, did you want more or less? Which ones would you like to include? We looked a little bit or talked about the salary report from 2015, and they looked at 20 cities. So that's a lot of work. I don't know if it made a difference
Right.
in the end, if they would have looked at,
Yeah.
it's just a smaller group, but that's the effort that they were comfortable with, so it just, we'll be
Yeah.
listening carefully and
But I don't think we need that many cities, so I was thinking like 3 or 4.
And I
we
think
like
it
6 to 9.
would be, since that would be interesting to determine like what is it even that the comparison is supposed to do in this case, right? I mean, it seems like probably it's just like the litmus there, like you don't want to be too out of the, stand out. But beyond that, is that going to be
Well, as I read it,
helping define, or is it the case that you can't deviate from the norm? I mean, what is the, it would be interesting to, before go ahead and start gathering data to actually say what we are looking for.
Yeah, I think
From the data.
I think we'll start with baseline data that we can bring to you, and then if you want additional columns added or something different, then we'll start building upon it, and I just wanna,
well, as I read the materials, I think there was also an attempt to capture the amount of hours worked by the other jurisdictions. It wasn't just a salary number. It was to try and compare the scope of
Scope of
responsibility as well.
responsibilities, the size of the.
and what other benefits compensation wise that they might be receiving that we just don't know about, because it's easy to capture the salary that they're getting. That's a little bit, it takes a little bit more effort to say, well, tell me more, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
What kind of payouts do you provide? You provide stipend, you provide healthcare. And then that's when it helps to know your counterpart in another jurisdiction to call them and say,
Oh, okay.
tell me more. I have a commission I need to report back to, and then we'll build out our information better. So,
If I can ask another question about this, I know with law enforcement, if you don't reach a collective bargaining agreement, goes to an arbitrator and the arbitrator determines the comparable
Yeah.
cities. Have you had that happen where an arbitrator
No,
determines the comparable cities?
we have not, but we do use a slightly different list for our law enforcement negotiations. This is kind of I would say this is like a merger of sort of our interest arbitration comparables and then kind of our surrounding cities, which tends to be sort of a good mix for most city positions. For law enforcement, there's a couple others that we use that are a little bit different, and those are based on kind of a strict assessed valuation plus population.
and you have 6 employee groups, 5 of those are union based.
We have 6 unions, 7 total employee
Okay.
groups, and 3 of them are interest arbitration unions. So like Auburn is an interest arbitration, Bothell is on the same list, Federal Way, Tukwila. But then we also sometimes use Mukilteo and some others that are a little more far flung, Puyallup, that kind of thing, but fit in that.
And the union relationship and bargaining is independent for Issaquah, or is there any union that would be, say, share for all the cities since they're all in this region and close? How does that work like?
Yeah, so all of our unions are unique to Issaquah. So we have like an Issaquah Police Officers Association, police sergeants, police commanders, police support, and then also an AFSCME local. That's a larger union, but they have a specific kind of Issaquah group, and Teamsters, which has, again, a larger union, but they have a specific Issaquah group. So.
Yeah, so I went back to this slide just for clarification purposes on the HR team, 3rd bullet. I probably would have done a little asterisk next to 6 bargaining groups because, there's the others. So just for that point, thank you.
We'll just follow up on that. Maybe at some point we can just get a list of those that are not on that list without the data, so we can at least know what those others are.
Sure, the interest arbitration jurisdiction.
Well, then you also said I think there are times you consider one wilderness for other purposes too, right?
Not typically, honestly. For like when we did our last citywide classification and compensation study, we did a really large group of comparables. And honestly, that experience was part of what informed kind of can we get down to a core list? Because we didn't find a lot of added value from having that larger
Okay.
list.
That's what I was gonna ask. Did somebody stick out?
Yeah,
Cause you've got a diverse group there. I don't know if that's the right word to use for this, but
sure.
just in like the home values and cost of living, there could be a comparison there with some of those cities, right?
Yep, yeah, and, you know, I think one of the things to know as well is that, you know, salary does not always follow, what you would think. So people often
Yeah.
think Bellevue is gonna pay really highly, and there are a lot of positions where Bellevue is very low.
Yeah. That's when you hear people on TV, I can't live in the city that I work.
Yeah, and Tukwila is the opposite, you know, people often think Tukwila doesn't pay very well, but they have some of the highest salaries you'll see around, so.
In Tukwila?
Yeah, for local government in any case, so. But yeah, we can certainly bring the list of kind of interest arbitration, cities to add a dynamic. if that's of
At least for
interest.
my purposes, I'm not asking for the data behind
Yeah,
that, just so we can
cities.
see what the other list
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And we remain in cities in Washington State, right?
Yeah.
We don't look outside.
No.
Oregon or-
No, it gets really complicated if you start looking outside. You need to apply like geographic differentials and that kind of thing to account for different costs of living in different areas. It doesn't tend to be our labor market also. So when we're looking for, you know, city positions, we're trying to think, where are we attracting people from? Where are people going to when they leave? That kind of thing. And it's not typically, we have a pretty small radius.
Mhm.
Is the comparison typically just on the, let's say, the compensation per se, or is it also practice to look at the, what the city department, the overhead cost represents as share of the budget or anything like that? Is that something that goes into the, let's say, Bellevue spending 30% in police had salaries, and Issaquah is only 10. Is that kind of comparison?
Well, I
relevant
think
or not?
that's something, it's a philosophy, it's kind of, this, I'm guessing here, negotiated essentially by the mayor, city administrator, and finance person to look at, you know, what can we do that will work given the market? Can we afford another 100 police officers or whatever, you know, and then they're gonna pitch that to the council, because the council's money comes from the council, so they have to approve anything that's like that. So, yeah, and total comp is part of the overhead, you know, if you're getting your lunch eaten by everybody because your total comp is terrible, then you're gonna have that discussion, how are we gonna afford this? You know, if we have to, you know, double the healthcare, whatever, do we have to cut some, you know, things in another department?
Sure, so that's more just as part of the budgeting
Yeah.
as a whole rather than the
So there's
compensation.
a lot of negotiation that happens between all the departments every year.
Sure.
It's just part of the game, it's just like any corporation.
Right, of course.
Yeah, we do look at, you know, a total compensation package is what we would say. So, you know, we want to know how much do you match in a 401k? We don't have a 401k, but a similar type program. How much do you pay for health insurance benefits? What do those benefits look like? You know, all those kinds of things that kind of add to the picture. We want to know what those are. You know, every time we do a study, we're not necessarily looking at that. We kind of look at that holistically so that we know what the picture is. And then if we need to adjust, that's going to be on a slower kind of timeline, you know, every 5 years or something. But yeah, so those are all important aspects of compensation too, you know.
We try to, I think, in the past, got a little out of it, we're now we really pulled it together to try to be a little more consistent between all these different groups. Bargaining groups, the exempts, the different type of exempt titles. So it's easier to administer because you can lose a lot of money just administration. But also because people talk, you know, and so public works guy just finds out, I get better insurance, so I just do the same job for parks. Well, that's gonna be a problem. Right?
So let me ask then, for the commissioner, for council people, they are elected to these positions. So have we ever had positions where nobody ran because the salaries were so awful?
I don't think salary is the.
Back in the day,
Okay,
I
there
don't,
was no competition, really.
Oh.
There were elections where there was like
Right.
no competition, no.
one person.
And was that driving, one of the driving factors for that was
At
low
the level
salary?
of
I think
compensation,
that
I
was
wouldn't
part of
think
the
it's the.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. You
But
know,
what about recently?
and the other challenge was the equity issue, right? So
Yeah.
when we paid almost nothing, only people who would even consider running had to already have a job that didn't require
Yeah.
the long hours and, you know.
Or retired and.
Or they're
would like some
retired,
benefits.
right? So it's not consistent. If you look at our community, everybody, the average age is like in the thirties. They got their
In
kids,
Issaquah?
parents, yeah. And so it's working people, professionals. But the council didn't look like that. So that was a good motivation for the first round that we did. We had that discussion a lot to kind of cue that up.
you'll see a lot of our board of commission members, you know, start out at a board or commission, get comfortable, work through the process, and then, you know, there's this, you know, a council member may not be running again, and there's this lift to, or motivation to run for the city council seat.
I think she's threatening us.
Hey, there's opportunities beyond here.
Always trying to develop a farm club. You know,
Yeah.
You gotta have people in the rings because, you know, time moves forward. People move on.
And you'll have an opportunity to ask the current council what their motivations were. We can look at those survey questions later tonight.
Great.
And then, we will, of course, want to find out from the cities that we're comparing, what are those extra things that we don't know about? But I did, this is in your packet, so, if, don't worry if you aren't gonna read through everything right now.
Yeah.
But I did want to pull it up because it does talk about our internal benefits. Do you want to highlight or walk through this in a sort of top level perspective?
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question? It just follows up on something John said about people talking and comparing within the city, what they're getting. Are there any union contracts coming up that the council is gonna be asked to approve before our decision about, so that they see people getting an X% increase and then we come to them with a decision on their increase?
That's a good question. We're settled with almost everyone for 23 and 24. There's one exception to that, which is our police support group. And I don't think that's gonna be, we have it penciled in for June 20th right now, so I think it'll be maybe similar timeline to what's going on with the salary commission, but, you know, with all of our other groups already settled, there's a pretty strong sort of gravitational pull for what that contract is gonna look like too, if that makes sense, so. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not as simple as there's a straight cost of living X% number. There's every-
You know, there's always everything on the table every time you know,
Yeah,
look
but
at
but
it.
is there a total comp increase that's similar among all the contracts that we should know about?
Yeah, very similar amongst all the contracts, and actually, I think Tina's next slide kind of.
Yeah, I've got information on that.
Goes into that a
We
little
can
bit.
talk about that first, and then you could look back to this. whenever you'd
Sorry.
like.
The council doesn't really negotiate those, but if it's like, the ask is so big, it's gonna have a material impact.
Well,
They won't budget,
even though they should
Yeah.
approve
they'll
it.
still talk to, yeah, but at the end of the day, they have to prove it. At first, it comes in executive session to say, hey, we're working with it.
Yeah.
We look like we're gonna do this, what do you think? Okay, yeah, and then it gets approved.
So, right, so what we did, and I can let you talk to the difference between the CPIW and the CPIU, was we took not any extra benefits, but we just took the base salary from 2015 and we said, what if, you know, what was the COLA that city established? So that would be find it here on my cursor. It'd be the city COLA. And then we said, well, that was our adopted COLA for staff generally, like the non-represented group. And then we took the July or June to,
The June to June, CPIW and CPIU, and those are both consumer price indexes that people pretty commonly use to sort of, you know, help decide what should my cost of living adjustment be. And.
we certainly aren't saying this is the number it should be. We're just saying.
Yeah.
Had it followed a timeline
Yeah.
and only reflected COLA, this is where it would have been at today.
Okay.
In 2022.
No,
It has- Traditionally, it's not been applied to the council salary positions, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
there is a COLA that happens with most different
Mhm.
units in the city, including exempts,
Mhm.
except for the council. It's just flat until they decide to
One
change it.
number.
Until we decide to change.
Yes.
Right.
And isn't it true that what we decide is for their next year's, what's the fiscal year here?
You can decide what you believe the effective date is,
Oh,
and then you vote as long as the
Right.
consensus majority, and that goes into effect. And you might find that you want to add more than one effective date, like a step.
Mhm.
You could decide an effective date plus some COLA.
Mhm.
You could offer a COLA, but not, let it be a full COLA, could
Yeah.
have, to, you know, this or less. You know, there's a max to it. I don't want to cloud you with, you
Yeah,
know,
no,
all the endless
I-
possibilities
I-
of what you could be doing.
because I was thinking, once what we decide, there's gonna be another election, so the folks that were working with
So
now
if
make
they-
Well, in theory,
If the council voted their own, which they could,
yeah,
It's
then
staggered.
the state law says, great, but you don't get that until you get reelected.
yeah.
So if you've got 2 years to go, you don't see it until,
So half your
Another
council
election.
would be collecting, a different salary than the other half.
Yeah.
And then it would take a couple of years for it to
all the level
be
out.
everybody being the same. Um,
but yeah, no, my question is, so in theory, we can, determine 5 years worth of, increases in salary.
Yeah.
Saying, for example, you know, every June from now to 2028, the salary is gonna go up by X amount percent. And these benefits go into effect, or what, and
that could be one
Yeah.
unique scenario that you come up with. I would, you know,
So it
there's
doesn't have-
many.
yeah, so it doesn't have to be the way that last commission did where, okay, so we're just gonna set it to this until the next commission figures it out, right?
And there's,
We can, okay,
Yeah,
and there's
we're
different
setting the rules,
compensation.
right? So the rules could be, it's like any job, it could be, you get it every year, you get it based on a performance, you get it on this, you get it on that, right? It's the same thing. We can set whatever we want. That's reasonable as far as
yeah,
compensation.
as long as
packages
it's in your
go.
purview, there might be some things that you'd like to do, but you just don't have the authority to do, and
Yeah.
I'll be listening to be like, okay, is there a recommendation in there that you'd like the council to hear? Or is it just truly off limits and you aren't going to be spending your time in that
right.
area?
And I'm sorry, I heard you talking about the dates, but I don't think I heard the answer. So the COLA number is for what's the end date on the?
This would be to current date. So if it would be today's salary. And I have, so of these two charts, this is monthly and this is annual.
Yeah. But, I'm sorry, Tina, but the CPI number goes through what date?
That, would we use February?
February, and I can
Yeah.
show you the
It's
data.
annual.
So it's also 2023.
Well, no, I'm trying to figure out if it captures the most recent inflation that we've seen.
I did. Yes.
The newest one.
Yeah, it says.
Yeah,
And I can show you, it's on the R drive, so let me grab it real quick, because it's worth looking at, and I can slide it over, so
Mhm.
once it's there, you'll know why it's there and what it is, and you can look at it closer.
Thank you.
Sure. So this is, where are you? The old stuff lives. There it is. Miscellaneous salary. And we took, here it is. So after tonight's meeting. So we took Issaquah's, you can't see that.
You know? Because of your mouth.
Well,
Perfect.
That's the easiest for me to stop sharing. And
So if we had, so if the last commission had set up a COLA consideration like this,
Mhm.
it would have been more in line to what those numbers show now with inflation, today.
Yeah, I think if I remember, they took a different approach and recommended that the salary commission meet every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Rather than.
That was,
Yeah.
that was the
Right.
recommendation instead of waiting. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't wait 13 years, only 8, so getting better, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
yes, they considered it and then made a decision and it's reflected in their report. So there's 3 or 4 slides or 4 worksheets within this workbook. And like I said, I'll move it over. And this is what you call this, non-reps
Yeah,
received in
non-represented
COLA
staff.
each year up through January of 2023. That's how I retrieved the numbers for the chart. Then we took let me increase it a little bit.
So that's an option where you could just say, apply whatever the exempts get. Whatever COLA that's calculated for them, that applies to the council as well.
Mhm.
Just walk away, you could always do that.
Right, although they are setting
Right,
Right.
which is,
COLA
They
for
do
others
approve
that
it
then
in the
impact
budget, so
that,
there is a
right.
conflict of interest, yeah.
which in my mind is one of the reasons why, you know, having a couple of indexes that are neutral is a useful consideration for the commission, because if you set it with a CPI number, we have no, you know, the council has no control over what that looks like,
Yeah,
so.
of course. And you could even set this and include a cap if that
Yeah,
was important.
exactly, minimum, maximum.
So I took in June.
June to June.
June to June.
Yeah,
Up through, February, because June's not here yet.
Mhm.
And, that's how we got to the information here. And then go here for you. You can see the numbers similar, slightly different. And then the charts that I used in your PowerPoint.
When you put it up there, would it be possible to total them at the bottom?
In what way?
So, the CPIW, just total that column,
the percentages,
yeah.
like, okay.
Even though it's
Compounding.
compounding.
It's
But yes,
compounding.
it does give you
Mhm.
some general idea, so let's
They
go.
need to figure out the whole numbers, actually, say, you know, 1,700 is what.
Oh, and
percentage.
this would have to, I don't know if it's calculating this correctly, so I'll double check.
Okay.
Just do it off the hard salaries. Next one, yeah, or the next one over,
Here,
yeah, because then they say it's $1,700 per down is what percentage more than
Mhm.
1,250.
The differential,
And that's your,
yeah.
And I did a rough calculation on that.
oh, it's a funky formula.
Yes.
Don't get me started. So-
yeah, all right, I'll leave it alone for now, I'll slide it over, you can.
We'd like to watch
Dive
you do
into the
math.
You're watching, they're judging my Excel skills. Yeah,
That is, of course, thinking about how whatever salary that we decided will remain up to date, or the conditions is one thing, right? But then how do we decide whether or not the baseline to begin with is appropriate, right? Let's say there's an assumption here that the last commission did get it right, but how do we know that, right? Let's say, what's the baseline to begin with? Looking at the report, there wasn't anything that gave a lot of information in 2015. It seems like, okay, it's below the market, so here's a number, right? But how did it come up with that number to begin with? I think that's something that I'm curious. It seems like it should be part of the process here, right? And perhaps, has there ever been, this is a question now for, you might know, has there ever been, considering that there is you know, we're in this comparison mode, and I presume the other cities are doing the same. Has there ever been any kind of effort to define what the compensation for the council is meant to cover for? Like, since it's a knowledge that it's not to pay for the full, you know, market-based compensation. So objectively speaking, has there ever been some, I don't know, studies or even just?
I mean,
Like, how do you, like, what is it? How do we know? Like, what's the criteria here? Like that?
I think that's what
That's what
you'll
we're
be
here for.
sitting around the table for, and you'll look at it from different ways. And you'll hear or see the information we're bringing back, that might help you make a decision. Elected officials are part-time, you know,
Right.
that's one way to look at it. They're not full-time staff equivalents. You know, there are some salary commissions that look at it from how many hours and what would minimum wage be and try to do some calculation that way. Our previous board didn't look at minimum wage as a factor and apply it against hours. They just all approached it from a sort of different but similar perspective, and then discussed and debated, and then
Sure. But I mean, again, this is just a point of view, but what I feel would be satisfactory in the process, and as much as possible, this would be to, well, first of all, at some point come up with options, right? Like here are 5 options, some that might be on the, you know, the edge there, like, but a good decision to me seems like you have options and you pick them.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
coming up with the options is gonna require not just having insight about the information you already have, but also like what are the different criterias that, right? So be good about defining those criterias, right? That ultimately might be in position to each other, some of those.
Right.
Having those clearly defined before coming up with the options and then coming back to
Right.
those. But
But to Tina's point, some of us may see it from one angle, some others from other angle. The idea is to bring all into the table, debate it, and maybe we can find combinations of things, right? The idea is how each of us can bring from our diverse backgrounds and experiences in asking for the right data, right? From, like, for example, the article that you shared through Tina this week, right?
Yeah.
It's about getting the right data to make the right decisions and looking at diverse sources of information, right? And you may come up with a formula or a way to say, okay, I believe this is salary, but oh no, let's, because right now we may all agree and say like, oh, I like that COLA number. Let's just agree on that. Bam, we close the commission today, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is let's everybody think this through, start asking for the data, and we may come up with different ways to get to that number. Let's debate it and find the best one, right? Because even as we did, as last time we discussed, or Bernadette was here, and she said like, she being the chair was the one person that it wasn't a consensus when the last one was approved, and she was the voice that was against it because she felt it wasn't enough, even though it was doubled, right? So we need to look at as much data as we can to figure out exactly how we can get to that number.
And I think it's important to capture what are the options, like you said, what are we hearing? And then make sure that we're checking in on those options to see, are you still interested or not? And I have a spreadsheet, a short spreadsheet, where the 2015 commission got to that point. They said, do we want to, let's talk about benefits. How much do we want to apply or not? Let's talk about COLA. Do we want to, how much are we willing to do? Let's talk about, you know, this lane. Do we want to or not? So it helped them decide if they're going to spend more time on it or know that they've made a decision and focus their attention on other areas.
yeah,
It's too soon, I think, to start.
Well, in
Asking
your,
the
that great
question.
article about what is a quality decision?
Yeah.
The outcome is a whole other animal. right? Because you don't know. You know, who knows what kind of people would want to run for office once we change it? We don't. know.
Right. You don't know
Right,
that.
but we have to have a defensible decision.
Right.
A quality decision, says we looked at all these things. And this is based on all our different experience,
Right.
what we think.
And I agree, the criteria that you're looking for right now will come organically as we progress through the data and through what the last, commission did, right?
Right.
And we have all the data there, and this team is gonna start bringing that data, right? So that criteria will come organically through our debates and discussions on that data, right?
But perhaps there are some aspects that may not come through there, right? I mean, just take an example like the equity aspect is something that seems like you have to establish that as a criteria that you want to do something about that, right? Like other than just, because otherwise you might get that bias of like seeing just like what everybody else is doing and just keep like this, you know, again, I don't wanna make this too open of a conversation, but this is something that is in my mind, like, okay, I have to come up with options. And some of these might be more constrained, like the benefits, right? Like they are, you know, you guys are gonna tell you only have 1 or 2 options here. I don't know exactly what it is, but I assume there's not a lot of options in each of the benefits. The salary, presumably in theory, is wide open, right? You could like pay very little, you could pay a lot, and just and it seems that knowing what should be will require data share, but also just like thinking about what should we do? What should this compensation
Yeah.
accomplish?
Equities flagged. There's a check, we'll call it a checklist. We want to have a thoughtful conversation as we start looking through that. We put it in your packet just so you could start seeing it. And, you know, we need to ensure that you have the time to do that.
Yeah.
So we're listening, and your chair is listening too, so that our future agendas will include elements. And if you feel like there's, you know, an idea that you've thought of outside of this meeting, that you're like, and I want to include this as criteria, send it to John and myself.
Okay, thank
So employee benefits, to completely change tracks here. And again, this is sort of just to give you background information so that you know kind of what city staff have. I do want to flag for you, we have underwriting rules on all of our plans, so they work in a very particular way for elected officials. So if this is an avenue that we want to explore, we'll need to look into that. And I'll just give you an example so that you know what I'm talking about. If we decide that we want to add medical insurance for council members, we have to have more than 50% participation on the council in order to be able to do that. So that means that 4 of our council members
Yeah.
would have to sign up.
4 or 3?
4,
More
because
than
more than
50%.
50%, so it's gotta be 4.
Because there's a specific plan or thing for the council only, they can be added to the city's.
That is the rule for being added to the city plan. So essentially, our insurance carrier has rules about when you can and cannot be added to the plan, and they have a specific set of rules for elected officials. And
Wow.
so just, I'm saying that so that you know, if we go down this path, we'll need to look into the rules for each, you know, in more
Yeah.
detail.
So
that
if
you
we decide to
understand.
put a value, which benefits have a huge value,
Sure.
but if we put a value on that, but the council members don't see it as a value because they have full-time jobs, then it's no value to them. But if we put a value on it and our council member is self-employed, that person might like these benefits, or if they're retired, they might like these. They're not pulling social security or anything,
Or
so.
beneficial to a future candidate that
Yeah,
Right,
helped
because
influence their decision to.
yeah, so we can't really look at today, even though we'll hear from our council members today, we can't really,
It's one, yes, one
Yeah.
piece of information.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay,
yeah,
just thinking
so,
about it.
yeah, without going super far down the rabbit hole, just to say, you know, if this is an avenue we want to explore, we'll need to be talking with our health insurance carrier, kind of getting those rules in front of you so that you understand how that all works too.
Okay.
an automatic, enrollment is out of the question, like, oh, you're elected as a city council member, you're automatically enrolled in it.
You know, I don't know the answer to that for medical. I do know, like, if we were to add, like life insurance, for example, they would have to be enrolled. It would be a requirement. I don't know if we can force it for medical. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because there's probably an employee contribution
Yeah.
as part of it. You probably would not want to automatically enroll them and force them to pay if they don't need it.
And they
Yeah.
might have something that they like better in another.
But again, if we are setting, if we're, again, just to discuss, but if we're setting the salary, we can say, well, we'll cover that as part of the salary, right? Like,
Mhm.
if it's gonna cost X amount per year, that's an extra amount that is added to the salary to cover the expense of that, right? So-
Yeah, you could, or might say that might create a bad precedent for the rest of the city employees in your labor negotiations.
It's
Well,
yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
I know
Yeah,
most of
but-
those where they-
Today, any of these benefits apply to?
Yeah,
council
no,
members?
so our council members don't currently receive any medical,
Okay.
dental, vision and life.
It'll be interesting to look at that data to see if what other cities have done.
Yeah,
Do they still get like, internet or something covered? It used to be they pay your Comcast bill.
Yeah, they get $600 a year. It hasn't changed.
For a time.
And if they apply
For Comcast and
and
stuff.
show us an invoice that says, you know, and I think we have 3 council members currently participating in that. And then the other ones are like, my work covers it, or it's part of
Yeah.
my write-off from my home business or whatever it is that they do.
Mhm.
And there was a little bit of discussion of PERS in the material. Do they have, are they
They-
eligible for PERS?
Yes.
They have a right to participate.
It's optional, so council members have a right to participate. That's set by statute, so that's just kind of, you know,
So we don't deal with that.
no, yeah, that's all set by.
It's like a 5-year vesting. So one term, it doesn't mean much, but in my case, turned out, once I came back to see it, work on their IT stuff.
Mhm.
I called the state and they're like, oh yeah, you get 50% a year for part-time. So I thought, okay,
Mhm.
but I hadn't been paying in, so it's, but you owe us what you would have paid in.
Right. So in 2015, it served as an educational moment for our council members
Mhm.
who didn't think of it or didn't realize that they may have stayed on long enough to get vested.
Right.
So it was a good opportunity to remind them that there is this benefit and they can utilize it. And we incorporated it into our onboarding.
Okay, okay.
So in terms of city staff, benefits that are kind of relevant in this context, we do have obviously medical insurance. We have a few different medical plans that people can choose from. Dental fully paid by the city, vision fully paid by the city. We offer, you know, retirement through the PERS system that council members can optionally participate in. We do matching on a 457, which is like a 401k type of program. Life and long-term disability insurance, employee assistance. So a lot of different kind of things. One other thing that's relevant for council members, another state provided benefit is paid family and medical leave. They do pay into the paid family and medical leave system, so they have access to that benefit if they meet the requirements from the state. But again, just kind of a 30,000 foot view so that you know what we offer, what might be available. If we were to kind of explore these for council, we'd want to be using our current
And so
carriers and that kind of thing.
this is a comprehensive list of every single benefit that can be given to, the council,
Right.
if we decide to.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it.
Only for Issaquah city, or does that also include like, data from what other cities are? Even if not, can we get that list as well?
In terms of benefits for
Yeah.
council members?
Yeah.
We would, if I'm hearing you correctly, we wouldn't necessarily have a city-wide list, but if a city was providing a council member benefits in some form, we would try to capture the value, what it was and the value, and we would show it on the spreadsheet for you.
Yes, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
right?
But it wouldn't include what percentage of the council members actually took it.
Although one of the questions on the survey they used in 2015 was, do you have interest, I'm paraphrasing, do you have interest in healthcare
Benefits,
benefits?
right?
Right.
And if we can choose, I guess, to continue.
Yeah,
that
I saw
question.
that.
Right.
Yeah, and one data point also is that, you know, we purchase our insurance through the Association of Washington Cities, that's our medical dental vision.
Mhm.
And so they provide insurance benefits for a lot of cities, not
Okay.
every city, you know, some people do different things, but,
Yeah,
and so their rules and how they run their plans is gonna impact kind of a lot of different cities as well, so
okay.
they're good. I think they're a good sort of baseline, what they offer in terms of what other cities may or may not have.
One more thing, somebody mentioned if we gave it, if it's like you're a new council member, here's your insurance plan. And I worked for a company that all of the employees had basic coverage and basic dental and basic vision. Whether they elected it or not, they got that. But if they wanted to add a spouse or add a higher level of health rather than just in-network only kind of thing, then they had to buy up on it. But that way it kept the numbers there so people would have it.
Or declining.
Or a decline, if they wanted it. But they would be still counted as insured, whether they used it or not.
Right. And there's ways for the council to, not refuse, but like,
Just,
give back their
yeah.
their
so something like
salary
that.
or a portion,
Mhm. Cause that way,
Donate or-
donate or.
yeah, cause
Yeah.
if we have a married with family council member and this is they're self-employed, this option of paying into this plan for their family might be cheaper than what that person's getting on the open market.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
definitely.
We're not sure about the complexity of the.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gotta look at the rules,
Yeah.
what would be allowed and who would have to participate in order for us to even be able to offer it.
Right.
And then,
Mhm.
I mean, the other thing that we didn't, you know, put on that slide is premium share, you know, we pay a certain amount for employees, this commission would have to determine, you know, would we do the same kind of premium share for council? Would we wanna do something different?
Yeah. Yeah, cause the basic plans, cause you know, there's always like 4 levels of the basic, there's 3 levels of the dental, there's 2 of vision. Well, they would automatically have the basic of these things at no charge, but they could buy up other things. And that's where we would make up the money is when they start buying up for other family members or buying into a higher tier.
Yeah, our plans don't really work that way, so we
Oh.
purchase a certain level and that's
And
what we
that's-
offer.
Oh,
What
okay.
you get.
Yeah.
Choices.
And then you know, can choose who you add to
Oh,
the
okay.
plan,
Obviously, that
but yeah.
works. Okay.
But even at that level, there's employee premium share.
On medical plans, for some of them, yes, not for all of them, for dental and vision, no premium share, so we cover, you know, full family, 100%. Our medical plans, you know, we have a low deductible option that has a premium share, we have a high deductible option that does not have a premium share, so that's
Okay,
100% covered, so,
I don't know, that seems like a big can of worms to unfold, but just one thing to maybe think about somehow.
Always complicated.
Yeah,
That would be, yeah. I don't know
As
if
we
really wanna
start-
Get into that, but
Yeah.
I
As
know,
we start
I
considering-
saw that as an option where I last worked.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a Fortune 100 and there's so many options. It's like, yes, I want, you know, Cigna and there's 4 options of Cigna that you can pick. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Well, yeah, I'm dealing with the Russian health exchange right now, trying to figure out. And it's not pretty, I'm telling you. It's super complicated. You have to use your own matrix to look at the stuff, and then you're still thinking.
Is there outline or
Yeah,
anything?
I did that for my parents.
It's
Not-
expensive too.
It is.
It's- Yeah, so it's like, we got a great, not great system. Not old enough to get the free stuff yet.
Yeah. But I mean,
Makes it a whole lot easier, John.
Yeah,
overall, you're still happy that at least there's a system.
Yeah.
Right?
at least there's something. you
It's
can
worth
buy.
something.
Because it was 15 years ago, you couldn't buy private insurance.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even sell it.
Yeah.
To somebody like me, who's like, oh, you're over,
Yeah.
how old? Nah,
No.
$1 million.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, how
Thank
many
you.
would you like?
Yeah,
Okay, great, I didn't mean to beat it up, but I just was thinking that. Right. Uh-oh.
I don't want to keep you longer, but if she's in the room,
Yeah.
so, before we let you go, is there any remaining questions for Lauren?
I have a question, I don't know if it's already, but do you know like what the percentage? So I think the package said that 40 to 45% of general fund goes salaries and benefits. Do you know how much is for the council specifically? How much of the general fund is going for salary and benefits?
oh, an
I
overall
don't know
budget.
the answer to that, but it'd be very low. Yeah.
It should be.
It's like the smallest department. in the
Right.
Yeah.
There's 8 of them. The highest is 17 for, yeah.
Yeah.
it
We'll
should be.
carry over the financial overview to your next meeting, so this is great, we have a whole,
state. Yeah, that's the guy who's got
Agenda
the whole
topic.
thing. You can see it.
and then we can dive into, specific, like,
Mhm.
are they using, are they now traveling again, since COVID is released?
Mhm.
Where are they spending their time? Again, it's very small amounts, but it gives you some data to understand travel reimbursement.
Okay.
Well, I have a couple other questions, if I might. And one is a request, I guess, one of the questions. When we collect the data from other cities, can we show the percentage change since 2015? Sort of in the same way that we've shown it for Issaquah?
We can certainly attempt it. We'll have to see what everybody else has available, but that's, yeah, we can absolutely ask.
If-
And I don't, at least for my purposes, I would need the intermediate steps the other years.
Yeah.
You might have the 2015 data from the last.
If it's in the packet in a way that, is helpful,
Okay,
we can flag it and then we can always hide that column
Mhm.
and then unhide it if it's important. So we can look at the baseline together.
so what are you thinking on that? Because we saw the salaries here. You want to see if the other cities kept up with the increases that the city was doing, the city of Issaquah was doing?
Yeah, so we haven't
Or did they
kept up,
outpace us?
we haven't adjusted since 2015. Presumably,
Okay.
some of the other cities have.
Yeah,
And at least it's, it would be helpful to
Right.
me to see if they're mirroring cost of living or how they're,
okay.
what
Inflation,
decision making
right.
they're using, yeah.
And you're gonna find, we will do our best to say, when did your salary last change? Because those dates vary.
Mhm.
Some just haven't revisited it or there's still such a lag like us.
Mhm.
Or their salary commissions are in progress right now, underway.
But we do know in 2015, because we got that.
Yep,
So I'm thinking, can we just get,
They can give us
I'm
like
just thinking
23.
2015,
Yeah.
what it is currently,
Yeah.
What's the
figure out the
difference?
percentage difference.
Yeah.
And then the other question, there was discussion in the prior, the 2015 report about how council members were not asking for expense reimbursement. Perhaps as they should, I don't know if you were here back then.
Yeah.
And there was gonna be some training. Can we get a sense somehow whether that's improved and whether they?
I found, because I've been here for 20 years, that very few council members seek reimbursement, like mileage reimbursement.
Oh,
I think in my tenure, we had one council member who routinely would submit for mileage. I haven't seen any of our council members do that. And it could be a variety of reasons, not interested, thank you. another form to fill out, or this
Yeah.
is public service.
Yeah.
I walk everywhere.
We all quite live with that one guy.
Okay,
Half a
the sense I got from the other board was it was a lack of knowledge and training, but if it's, you're given the training and they still are not applying for it, you know, that's
Right.
fine.
We try our best to remind them that it's there, and we pay attention when someone is, because we're like, oh, somebody's using it, okay. So to me, it's beneficial at those moments where it's happening, because it must mean something. It's kind of like our stipend program for other boards and commissions. Even those that may qualify may not participate because, you know, whatever personal reasons. But those that do, I want to ensure that the process is smooth and that it's as easy as possible and that they're getting their dollars that are due to them.
Thank you.
Will we be able to include demographic data in the, along with the salary from other cities as well? Mainly to see what other cities are applying and it's attracting different, you know, walks of life to a council member position, right? Because as John was saying earlier, like, we are a city that median age is like 30, 35, and we had council members that were all retired, and like, what can we do to entice a younger population, right? What's out there?
I think we could bring you Issaquah's demographics. I don't know how in depth it compares our neighboring cities. There might be some data. We can certainly tell you the form of government, population. We could bring back, you know, budget numbers, median household income, if those things are important to you. But if you're talking, are you asking about like the populations that are within Issaquah and how that may be different from another group?
No. I'm looking more for the makeup of the actual, city councils and, employees of the cities, right? Like the demographics of, what's the division between, you know, genders, ethnicities, all those things where we can say, oh, if we provide more of this type of benefits, we can attract this type of more than just, the retired folk or whatever, right? To see what are we doing? Are we doing it right? Are we not? Are we leveraging the right levers to?
Sure. Have you found that cities share that type of information?
We can ask,
Can't you get
because
that from PSRC?
Some of it's,
maybe,
But I think they
that's a
collect
good
all that
thought.
kind of stuff.
some of it's optional, some of it could be dated, it may not be specific to council.
Some of them might not collect it,
Right.
you know, but it's something we could explore. I mean,
Sure.
you know, if we're doing a survey, we can ask, you know, Renton, like, what's the demographic, you're saying like, what's the demographic makeup of your council, basically,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
So Victor, what would we do with results like that?
and
Where, I
What did
mean,
it tell you?
so
I know what it would tell
Census
you.
data.
I'm thinking more about the DEI, right, considerations. How can we make our council more diverse, right? How can we attract
They
a,
can't, they have
you
to
know,
run, it's their own will.
Hmm?
We can't make them, they have to run and be elected, it's. their own
Exactly,
will.
but like you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah.
It, maybe there's a reason why people are not saying like, oh, maybe I wanna run for council, right? I know that the consideration is not the benefit, but
Yeah.
if we made it, obligatory, benefits for the health insurance, maybe, a single mother of 3 that works at Fred Mayer, so I was like, oh, maybe I should run for city council to get that and, you know, maybe not spend as many hours
It
working.
might be really hard to see that in the data like that because of the filter of the election itself, right? Like you have to like almost, you have to have a survey of people who consider running and what they.
You could do a local survey and, you know, have them say, you know, I attest, I'm a registered voter and I would, these were things that would be meaningful to me if I was running. We can always throw out a community survey and do some direct targeting to neighborhoods or groups that we think there's value. But
Yeah,
we
the
would
fact
limit
is-
it to Issaquah.
Right.
Have they had to like, survey methodology tools, like to
Yeah, I mean,
easily send out
they've
stuff
got
like that?
stuff they can use different, it just depends. I mean, anecdotally, it's definitely happened where, you know, one of the unwritten rules of council is that if you're thinking of leaving, you should find somebody who wants to run.
Right.
You tend to get to know the various commissions and people on them. And I had approached several people when I was thinking of leaving the council, and they were like, oh, it's too much time.
Was it too much time?
Yeah, it's basically, once they had a look at it, they're like, it's a lot of time.
That's
If
not
you're
really a
working, if your
part-time
job was already, you're leaving the house at 6 and you're getting home at 7, you know, you'd have to beg your boss to get out early, to show up, to make it by 7 and all that. But then if you had, you know, and the compensation was basically nothing when I was doing that. So if you could say, you know, we got better compensation or we've got healthcare, you know, and if they're thinking about changing the mix of their employment anyway, I mean, it just gives them more options to think about.
Right.
In the small business community, you know, they were not interested at all because, you know, it's a full-time job keeping a business afloat.
Right.
We used to have a few way back when the job was really minor, you know, time-wise. It was like every 2 weeks you meet for a couple hours. That was kind of all there was to it. Then we used to have some small business owners, but that kind of disappeared once the job got hard.
Right.
The job got harder.
Yeah.
So it's not really a
The city
part-time
got
job.
bigger. It is, but it's a solid part-time job.
The survey,
On
I
top of
think
your
I
other
recall was 55 hours a month or something like that. In 2015, I guess.
Yeah.
It's probably grown since then.
Yeah, you're doing 15 to 20 a week and some are more and some are less. You know,
Wow.
because of all the reading and then
Oh,
you know, you really, if you're really gonna put an effort into it, you've got to show up, right? Because you get invited to everything.
They had some.
So you're gonna go to a chamber meeting, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, right?
oh,
Do they, some council also have any executive functions too, or no? No, just purely.
So again,
Just Congress, money.
yeah. And
laws.
to that point, 15 to 20 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
That are, city council spending, right? Do we want to attract people that have a part-time job doing something else? And then this is another one, when the salary for the council president is $17,400, right? So that's the thing, like, what I want to see, you know, what are others offering to attract different types of people? As opposed to like, oh no, I'm like, I retired, I'm set. Now I can give back to the community, right? Because it doesn't bring you know, a lot of diversity to the decision making and running that city council, right?
For the bigger cities, they pay a lot more, obviously, like Bellevue or
Oh, right.
Seattle. Seattle's a full-time job and you get staff.
yeah.
Bellevue's not quite there, but they're
Close.
paid a lot,
But they have a lot of meetings too.
but they're busy, yeah.
Yeah, I think, maybe what we can do is start to ask the question a little bit and see what data might be available, because I'm not really sure that we're gonna get great data if we
Right.
start, you know, looking around, but. And then you've always got to overlay it over, you know, what's their city demographics versus ours, because that's gonna be a little bit different, but. We can start asking the questions and just seeing if anybody's also done that work already, you know, that's another piece to kind of.
Because there was a recent census, right, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
so there's data out there about mix by zip code or whatever. I think it's publicly available, so.
Yeah,
And maybe PSRC already candid into something digestible. It's the, what's PSR, Puget Sound Regional Cities, I think it is.
Council.
Council. And it's a group that collects and shares data with all the cities around the east side and, well, both sides of the Puget Sound.
okay. Puget Sound Regional Council.
Yeah.
ESRC.org.
Oh. We quit at 7:30.
We go till 8,
Okay.
but,
But we're missing one of our agenda items.
Oh, that's right. We're missing this.
So the only thing that left was the council survey questions.
yeah, and before I go into that, and we can always carry them over, but, I guess I wanted you to see, you know, these are your current council members. And normally we'd say, you know, we're talking about council salary.
Yeah.
You know, generically, it doesn't matter who the players are.
Mhm.
But if you don't know who our council members are, you might encounter them or be in front of them. So,
Mhm.
you know, faces to names. And then you can see who's currently serving in the council president role and our deputy president role.
Mhm.
Council, all 7 seats are elected. The positions are staggered at by King County. And we run elections in the
Off years.
odd years, yes.
Mhm.
So this year.
This year.
This year will be a filing
3 go up for election this fall.
4.
4, there's a 4,
And the terms are 4 years.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of those, they decide every January who serves as their council president. So they say, all right, you're gonna be part of our leadership and you're gonna help connect to the mayor's office and our city administrator and help agenda setting and be the mayor pro tem when the mayor's maybe out of the country or signatory purposes. Sign things
A
like,
lot more regional
Yeah.
asks, you get calls to go
Mhm.
show up. represent
Right.
The city.
Annual charge spend.
it is. We did find that our council president and deputy council president tended to serve 2-year cycles, even though it was an annual cycle, because they get comfortable in it and then they, you know,
Just learn it by the
there's
end of
trust.
the year.
Right.
Well, there's the other notion that a council as a body of the same people is 2 years long. Every 2 years, the chance at least one face or more could change.
Mhm.
So you try, that's why it tended to fall into that anyway, because it was
Right.
like, it's the
The
same
cycle.
people, let's just keep going. And see what we can get done, because the government moves slow, so it does takes a while to make things happen, so.
Yeah. So, and of course, our mayor is elected and you are not charged with determining the mayor's salary. The mayor is, you know, runs the day-to-day business of City Hall, hires and fires, but has a city administrator that handles the majority of that. Council's policy setting. So they are your elected representatives. They set policy, they enact legislation, and they set the budget. The mayor presents the budget, but council has the authority to ultimately approve it.
Mhm.
They also serve on 3 standing committees as well as their regular meetings. And they have something called council rules, and I did 2 excerpts from it. This is not in your packet, but it is in your OneDrive repository, and I'll hand them out to you in a minute. It talks about what the standing committees are, talks about regional boards. I've given you a page so you could at least see where some of our members sit locally, regionally. They also share an annual calendar to review our payroll and payables every month. So rather than every single council member setting time aside to go through all the payments, and we have safeguards in place. So we have our finance department, our
Yeah.
finance director, we have approval processes. But council is sort of that last lens to say, what is this? What's, you know,
Wow.
the oversight. So they can ask us questions and flag items, and they are approving payroll, ultimately, invoices and other items that are going out the door.
So unless council approves payroll every month, employees don't get paid.
We trust the cycle and the authority of our director to release the information, but it's more of an auditing oversight. And if we needed to flag something or do something different. So some of the checks aren't.
Big spends like paying off a contractor for that doesn't happen until the council says, yeah, okay.
Right,
You can't write the check.
You can't write the check.
right, because from June to June, salary wise, month to month doesn't change much unless you hire somebody else or.
No, I mean,
So
we
they
really,
approve the expenses, besides approving the budget, they.
Yes.
Makes sense.
yeah. it's
So-
always-
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that oversight, there's a schedule. Each council member takes about 4 meetings through the year and says, yeah, I'll be the point for that. And then when the mayor says, has council reviewed payables, you hear 2 voices say yes, and then they move through approving. So I've got that. And again, this is in the online repository. You probably know this. You know.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. And then,
It's coming.
So this current here, pictures of these council members. Just to give you a kind of what they're doing now, besides being council members, right? So Chris is a technology consultant. Zach is an analyst for, I think, Olympia. He's like a political analyst. Barb is retired, and she was heavily involved in the school district. Lindsay
runs her own business.
runs a business in marketing. I think it's web marketing, I think. Russell Joe is an attorney who's semi-retired now, is what he told me when I saw him at the last event. Victoria is,
But Russell's working for the Master Builders Association.
that's what he's doing now, okay. And I can't remember, I thought she had something to do with the UW.
She's,
She wasn't a professor, she was.
no, she's heavy data.
Yeah, some kind of data analyst, I think, or. And Tola is a rocket scientist who worked for,
Really?
yeah, he worked for Bezos for a while.
Interesting.
And I think he's working for Tethers,
Cool.
which is the space tethers for towing satellites and that kind of stuff. Yeah, he can carry on. At least I can talk to him forever about that stuff. It's pretty, he does some really cool work.
And then of those council members, again, for what it's worth, you can see the longevity of terms. So Russell served back in, 2000s and then came back in 2022. So I grouped his information out a little bit different, but you can sort of see 3 of our council members came in through a vacancy, and then we did an appointment process. And so council elected, we did a recruitment among qualified citizens who stepped forward, and then they appointed the person who would serve in that term until the general election could run. So these 3 people, Hunt, Walsh, and D. Michelle, initially started through an appointment process and then became elected through by the voters. Their terms are staggered, as you can see.
Just a quick question, is this because they were elected to another, or just they
No.
vacated for other reasons?
Yeah, I mean, like some people, their full-time job moved to another state, so they left,
I see.
right? Positions open, or a health issue can happen. I mean, somebody had to leave because of that.
So they resigned their, like.
They have to resign, yeah. And then, the appointment process is an very public interview process. So whoever says they'd like to be on the council can put their hat in the ring, and then the council members interview them on public in this formal session. And then they vote on which one they want.
And then I went ahead, because I can't help myself with the council history, and added in when I knew that they were the council president or deputy council president. And I can say Traeger served, I have you in my notes, that's serving many of those years in between. So it tells you kind of who held those roles. And while we are maybe asking for some of this information of the council members in the survey, we already sort of know who has served strongly in that role or who hasn't.
Yeah, and then the president deputy president meet with the city administrator and the mayor every week
Weekly, yeah.
on Wednesdays. Like it's usually Wednesday morning.
Mhm.
And so they just basically set the agenda for the following Mondays, at that meeting, following Monday's regular council meeting, and anything else that comes up.
Right.
So it's generally kind of an informal discussion between the council leaders and the mayor.
And if there's special meetings or retreats or community sessions, it usually starts with the council leadership team, which is your council president, deputy president, in our mayor's office. And they start building out the agendas, or they solicit interest from their peers to see, you know, how are they gonna lead council through a retreat. Yeah.
They have, every other week is the regular council meeting, and then they have what's it called, the council of the whole. It's like the third or fourth
Once a month.
of the month, week, Monday of the month, and then next Monday is.
And those happen in,
Yeah, we don't do work
Committees.
sessions anymore, but we do have 3 committees a
Mhm.
month.
But they can meet any day of the week.
And then they might sit
Depending on the
on,
committee members, they all agree on.
Right.
something.
they might sit on East Side Fire and Rescue once a month. They might sit on Cascade Water that meets monthly. They may be the chamber rep. And then there's some regional groups, and it's in your paperwork, where some of them have a regional
Yeah.
commitment, and we can get at that in the survey. I'll carry the survey over to the next meeting as well, so you can think about it. We can repurpose, we can change. I think it's valuable, so I would encourage you to,
will that include the questions and answers from us, or just questions?
just questions. I think if you want the data, I can provide it.
I think it'll be
Last time.
interesting to see changes from
Mhm.
last questionnaire, with the same questions that we're asking, of course. like,
Sure.
But I wonder if we
I don't-
wanna hold the data until we have the new data for comparison.
It'd be, for me, it would be easier to determine what your desired questions are and get the survey going, and then gather that data and help present sort of a little bit side by side information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that, I think that's fair, to not, bias out towards questions or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
Is the agenda item to review them or to review and decide what we want to
Yeah.
ask for next time?
Review questions, decide what you want to ask. Are these the questions, or do you want to edit them? Is there more? But you could take more than one meeting to decide that too. I don't want to rush you. You have some time. But as soon as we get the survey live, we can set a deadline for the council members to get back to you. So we could have that fairly quickly.
Okay.
So if we all, I'm sorry, John.
What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't-
I thought you.
No, I was saying there's only 7 of them, so it doesn't
Right.
take them long to do it.
Yeah,
but I'm thinking if we all come next time with whatever changes we might want to see,
Yeah.
we might be able to
That's the
accelerate that
homework, it's just
process.
homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Review the questions and which ones do we want, and
It was in the links you sent. at the
Yeah,
very
so
beginning.
it's in, yeah, so there's a couple ways. I went ahead and had attachments to the packet,
Yeah.
and then there's a presentation as well that sort of helps lead through tonight.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'll continue to do that in the future. I want it to be easier to move through the data, but, I might break out the PowerPoints going forward if it's helpful.
thanks.
And then any handouts will be in your, repository. So now's the time to start reading your packets, doing a bit of homework, flagging stuff. Cause like, we'll be, like, here's this initial touch point of what the past questions were. Let's come back to discuss and see which ones you would like to do.
Would it be possible to get those questions in Word format so?
Yeah, I can strip them out. Cause I hit the easy button in this case.
Yeah, no, that's fine. At least I think.
Yeah, I can put
then
them
actually
into a working
do
document.
it.
I just don't want you all working on it at the same time, so we'll incorporate it into a document we can work from here, but you can know what you're gonna bring.
We can prepare.
Yes. So I think we have, I'll work with the chair, I think we have enough, budget overview, and survey questions, for our next meeting. And allows you time to discuss. So the question is, your next meeting, oops, I'm gonna hit volume again.
You're out of the country
Next week.
yes.
So we could, offer remote access. We could allow you to catch up when you get back, or we could skip the meeting and meet the week after. So you've got some
The week
choices.
after, I'll need remote access, if that plays into anybody's decision.
Well, the remote access thing, I think you're gonna be in the other side of the
Yeah,
line, you're gonna have to
Side.
go at 3 a.m., so that's not fair to you.
Okay, so you just need her.
If you're going south, it'd be one thing, we're going
But
across.
see, a lot of the information is gonna be in the package is what I'm hearing.
Well, you'll have the budget
Yeah.
that you saw tonight that will
Yeah.
get carried over,
Mhm.
and then there'll be an opportunity for Q and A with our finance director. And then the other component would be the salary questions, and if we were keeping the meeting of the 25th,
Mhm.
you could, if you had ideas, if you're like, I'm good with the questions, or I'd like to see this or that, you can filter them to me or to John. Or we can decide, let's take a break, let you guys read through the materials you have, and we meet the week after.
The budget, I have a question, just, is there, and I presumably there's also just like on the city website, the full budget, right? Is this what we have here? It's a lot of like the highlights, right?
It's the highlights. I gave you, an excerpt. You asked for it.
Yeah, I think the city website's being operating off of that, unless they're planning amendments.
So, so I would have access to all the, which it seems like there's no need to cancel the meeting or postpone if I miss it. Because I would-
And you could always follow up with some one-offs.
And the meeting will be recorded, if you wanna review that too.
And I think you're only one though.
No,
If we, yeah, if we get the questions, this week, we do an offline review, add our notes, make our changes, as Henry suggested, and then send those through you.
Yep.
You compile all that, and then we review that on the next meeting. It'll include yours. You
Yeah.
can do that.
So is that allowed, or we can do it like that?
as you're doing it individually, yes. If you were
Okay.
discussing it as a group, no.
No, exactly, so.
Which is why we're saying, I'll compile, you have the PDF, but I'll put them in a more user-friendly format.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
then we'll look at the list, and, chair or I can help articulate what you desired from it, and
Sure.
then,
Yeah.
we can
Perfect.
go forward.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right, yeah, this was good discussion.
Mhm.
It's good, just trying to get everybody's head around what
Mhm.
are we doing anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
So this would be, other business and announcements we'll just have on the agenda, which is an opportunity to say there's an event coming up, or we're working on something, or, the cultural calendar conflicts in some way, and let's talk about that, but, I don't think I have any announcements to share that my brain can think of right now. I had a late night last night too, with, council meetings, so.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
yeah, Monday night is special. But I've had your sub come in and cover for you.
you get overtime.
No, but, I'm highly compensated and enjoy my job tremendously.
The next council meeting is 2 weeks from yesterday.
She's ribbing you or?
Yeah, almost. They meet the first and third Monday of every month. And then last night was a special meeting of a commission,
Oh.
of a different commission that I also, support. So
Yeah,
that's all fun.
yeah, commissions are evening days. So
Yeah.
it typically, well, they used to have what was called comp time. So if you're an exempt employee, but you had to go to a 4-hour meeting in the evening, but you had to work 40 hours on top of that. You could bank the 4 hours for later time. But that blew up into, some people had thousands of
We
hours.
just haven't get a chance to use it.
Yeah, and
So I'm
so,
taking 2022 off.
yeah, pretty much, so that kind of died. We-
So because they were working too much, they decided to not pay it at all. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, if my schedule is light, I could, you know,
Sure.
work a half day on Friday.
Much more flexible these days.
When the weather gets better. Well, don't bother now.
That's a shit amount.
Thank you for all your doing too.
Yes, thank you. Lauren's gonna be my big help too.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, happy to.
So it's 7:55. I'm going to adjourn. the meeting.
I
Okay,
move to adjourn.
great.
Second.
All right, that's it. You can move on.
Just do it.
I'm ready to go.
So